Hello and welcome to this edition of Arirang News. I'm Kwon Jang-ho and thank you for joining us. It was all going so well. The Inter-Korean summit had gone off without a hitch and everything was falling in place for the North Korea-U.S. summit. And then suddenly, out of the blue, Pyongyang cancels its high-level talks with Seoul at the last minute and warns that it's reconsidering the summit with the U.S. What went wrong and where do Seoul and Washington go from here? We discuss this and more with a guest in the studio later, but first we go over to our news centre for the latest developments on that situation with Devin Whiting. Devin?
Hi, Jang-ho, that's right. The North pulled out of that meeting with South Korea just 10 hours before it was set to take place. The North blamed the military exercises by South Korea and the U.S. for supposedly ruining the diplomatic mood. That's in stark contrast to what the regime had said in recent weeks regarding the drills. For a while, it seemed to be more understanding. Oh Jung-hee reports from the Unification Ministry in Seoul.
30 minutes past midnight and only 10 hours before the high-level talks were to begin, North Korea notified South Korea abruptly that the meeting was cancelled. Pyongyang also released a lengthy statement through its state media. It said it couldn't help but call off the talks, pointing to a combined Air Force drill by South Korea and the U.S. called Max Thunder, which started last Friday. It said the drills are a rehearsal for a preemptive airstrike, a challenge to the Panmunjom Declaration, and an intentional military provocation. The North claimed that South Korea is breaking the two Koreas' promise to lower military tensions, and therefore Seoul is to blame for the cancellation. Pyongyang also lashed out at the U.S., saying Washington will have to think carefully about the fate of its own summit with the North, leaving open the possibility of canceling the Kim-Trump summit as well. Seoul expressed regret over Pyongyang's decision.
North Korea made a unilateral decision to postpone the high-level talks right after notifying us of the date, citing our regular joint Air Force drills with the U.S. We express regret as this action does not correspond to the fundamental principles and objectives of the Panmunjom Declaration.
The government added that Seoul is still dedicated to fully carrying out the summit agreement and urged the North to quickly respond to its call for talks. South Korea stressed that dialogue will have to continue anyway, so the two sides can discuss the issues Pyongyang is now raising. Seoul is to send a message to North Korea on Wednesday, though it's not clear what it'll say. When the groundwork for the now canceled talks was being laid, according to the Unification Ministry, the North never raised any objections to the Max Thunder exercise or allied drills in general. Oh Jung-hee, Arirang News.
North Korea is apparently also thinking of calling off the planned summit with the United States next month. According to the North state-run news agency, Pyongyang's Vice Foreign Minister Kim Kye-kwan said that the North will no longer have an interest in talks with the U.S. and will have to reconsider going ahead with them if Washington continues to, in his words, force the regime's unilateral nuclear disarmament. He also criticized U.S. National Security Advisor John Bolton's talk of a so-called Libyan model for North Korea's denuclearization, saying that's a highly sinister attempt to impose on the North the fate of Libya and Iraq. Kim's remarks came just hours after the North called off today's planned high-level talks with South Korea. And to discuss the North's cancellation of today's talks with South Korea, Seoul's Defense Minister Song Young-moo held an emergency meeting this morning with the commander of U.S. Forces Korea, General Vincent Brooks. South Korea's Defense Ministry told Arirang News that the two met for about half an hour, starting at 8 a.m., and discussed a joint response to the North's sudden about-face. The two said the Max Thunder exercise will continue, and between the allies there is no difference of opinion on the matter. The ministry added that the exercises are a regular annual training program for pilots. The U.S., meanwhile, has taken the North Korea talk of canceling next month's summit in stride. The White House says it's looking at what the North has said, and the State Department is continuing to prepare for the talks on the assumption that they will take place. Lee Ji-won has more.
The United States has responded to North Korea's announcement that it's suspending the planned high-level talks with South Korea. Saying that the U.S. is aware of the cancellation, White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders said in a statement Tuesday that the U.S. will look into what North Korea has said independently and continue to coordinate closely with its allies. This comes as Pyongyang also threatened to call off the much-anticipated North Korea-U.S. summit slated to be held on June 12th by saying that the U.S. should carefully consider the fate of the upcoming summit in view of quote-unquote provocative military disturbances with South Korea. According to CNN, a senior administration official said that meetings are currently underway between White House officials, the National Security Council, and the Defense Department, and that the White House is preparing its response. But earlier Tuesday, the U.S. State Department said they will move forward in preparing for the talks.
We are operating under the idea and the notion that the president's meeting is going forward with Chairman Kim next month.
Nor denied that the drills are provocative, saying the exercises are things that the U.S. does all over the world with many of their partners and allies. She also emphasized that the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un had said before that he understands these joint drills between South Korea and the U.S.
I will say that Kim Jong-un had said previously that he understands the need and the utility of the United States and the Republic of Korea continuing in its joint exercises. They're exercises that are legal, they're planned well in advance.
Nord went on to say that the news had just come out and that they need to verify it to get additional information. The Pentagon defended the military exercises in a statement on Tuesday, saying that the annual exercises are part of the ROK-U.S. alliance routine and that the purpose of the training is to enhance the alliance's ability to defend South Korea and enhance interoperability and readiness. Lee Ji-won, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, on the international front, North Korea has vowed to join global efforts to ban all nuclear tests. That's what the North's ambassador to the United Nations in Geneva said on Tuesday as he addressed the disarmament conference. Our Kim Yo-sun reports.
North Korea has proclaimed its intentions to join global efforts to ban nuclear weapons tests. Its ambassador to the UN in Geneva, Han Dae-sung, told the conference on disarmament on Tuesday that, quote, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea will join international desires and efforts for a total ban on nuclear tests. This is the first time the regime has made such claims aimed at a total ban on nuclear tests. While Han did not explicitly mention the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, watchers interpret the remark as Pyongyang's intentions to join the international agreement ahead of the historic North Korea-U.S. summit slated for June 12th. Pyongyang has yet to rejoin the treaty since it withdrew from it in 2003. It's one of the 8 countries with nuclear test capability, including the U.S., China, and India, which have not yet signed or ratified the treaty, hindering the agreement from taking effect. In his address, Han also said the North aims to exert more efforts to develop inter-Korean relations and alleviate military tensions on the Korean peninsula. The U.S. ambassador on disarmament, Robert Wood, welcomed Han's remarks, adding that he hopes the upcoming summit between the two countries could serve as an opportunity to establish peace and prosperity on the Korean peninsula. Han's announcement comes as the North said last weekend that it will completely destroy its nuclear test site in Punggye in front of invited foreign media. Kim Yo-sun, Arirang News.
I'm Devin Whiting, and those are your news headlines for this hour.
North Korea has cited the Max Thunder joint South Korea-U.S. Air Force drills as the reason for calling off its high-level meeting with South Korea. Seoul's defense ministry has responded by saying that the exercises are purely defensive in nature and that they will go ahead as planned. Cha Sang-mi explains further about the drills.
Last year's Max Thunder exercise began on April 21, 2017. Back then, North Korea waited 5 days before responding with its largest ever live-fire exercise. This year's Max Thunder drill, which began last Friday and is scheduled to run for 2 weeks, led to North Korea cancel a high-level inter-Korean meeting set for Wednesday and even threatened to pull the plug on the Pyongyang-Washington summit scheduled for June 12th in Singapore. The joint exercise takes place annually and is the largest military flying exercise held on the Korean peninsula. It's part of a continuous exercise program designed to enhance interoperability between South Korean and U.S. forces, and is not tied to any specific real-world events or situations. It has also been regarded as an exercise that highlights the long-standing military partnership, commitment, and enduring friendship between the two allies to help ensure peace and security in Northeast Asia. So how is the Max Thunder exercise being held this year? The joint exercise involves some 100 warplanes, including 8 F-22 stealth fighters, as well as F-15K and F-16K jets. However, a military source told Arirang News that U.S. B-52 strategic bombers are unlikely to participate in this year's exercise. But the highlight of this year's exercise are not the 8 F-22 fighter jets that are making their debut. Equipped with state-of-the-art stealth technology, the fifth-generation fighter jet is known to be capable of bringing down 100 fourth-generation fighters, like the F-15 and the F-16 on its own. The main bay of the F-22 Raptor can accommodate 6 launchers for beyond visual range missiles, and each side bay has launchers for short-range missiles. If that isn't devastating enough, 4 of the launchers can be replaced with 2 bomb racks that can each carry 1,000-pound bombs. Could the sheer size of the exercise be reason for North Korea's sudden about-face? While Max Thunder is known to be routine and defensive in nature, both allies are now left hoping this year's exercise won't put a dampener on the path to peace. 차상미, Arirang News.
Now, to take a further look at these latest surprising developments, we have with us Dr. Woo Jung-yup, a research fellow at the Sejong Institute. Dr. Woo, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me today.
Now, we just heard in that report what the Max Thunder drills are. And North Korea has cited these drills specifically as to why it called off today's high-level talks with South Korea. But can they be considered serious enough for Pyongyang to take this kind of action?
As we just heard from the report that North Korea had said that, and Kim Jong-un himself said that he understands the nature of the joint military drills from South Korea and the United States. So it's quite unexpected development very suddenly this morning. And I think that they know that the nature of this Max Thunder military drill is defensive in nature, and also it has been scheduled way in advance. And when they set up the date for the high-level talks, they already know that this Max Thunder drill is going to be continued in the period. So I think that the reason why they canceled the meeting, and specifically the reason of the cancellation is the Max Thunder, I think it's a political reason inside rather than the Max Thunder drill itself threatened the security of North Korea this time.
So yes, as you mentioned, like if we look at the series of events that happened, Max Thunder drills were planned way in advance, and they began on the 11th last week, and then 4 days later on the 15th, the North Korea contacted the South and let's hold high-level talks. But then suddenly this morning they say, we're going to cancel because of the drills. I mean, what I don't understand is they must have known, I mean, they knew that the Max Thunder drills were being held. But why suddenly come out and say, you know, that's the reason why we've cancelled?
There are so many things that we cannot explain for North Korea's behavior so far. However, I think that the first impression that I got from this today's message from North Korea is that if they are not satisfied with a certain South Korea's behavior, then they have now channels to talk about that issue. So after the April 27th summit between President Moon Jae-in and the Chairman Kim, that I think they are confident in establishing the channels to talk through between two Koreas if it's not for the President or Chairman himself. So I think that the reason why they canceled the meeting today for the Max Thunder drill this time is that maybe there is a problem domestically within North Korea that they have to, there's some dissatisfaction maybe from the hardliner in the military, or there are some factions in North Korea that they are not really satisfied with this rapid process of peace process and denuclearization talks with the United States. So maybe they need to say to their own people that we are not just to go with the United States coercive measure of diplomacy, but we are going to do in our own way to show that they have to show some of their strengths. And one of their strengths is that cancellation of meetings in their own way, even though United States and South Korea is expecting. So I think that Max Thunder drill itself is not a bigger problem for them, but talking with the inside domestic audiences, especially for the power elites from the military, is bigger concern, I guess. So I think that is why they use these military drills to cancel the high-level meetings this time, because there might be some dissatisfaction from the high-level elites in military. So I think that even though it looks very unexpected and surprising for us, but we have to see that what's going on inside North Korea.
So then, South Korea and the US have said they were going to carry on the Max Thunder drills, despite these developments. But then how will North Korea react to that, with South Korea continuing the drills? As you said, it might be a domestic issue. If South Korea continues the drills, then don't they have to continue reacting this way and not continue these kind of high-level talks with South Korea?
I really don't think that they are going to cancel everything because of these Max Thunder drills. So probably South Korea and the USFK is going to make an announcement that this is like annual pre-planned military drills and defensive in nature. It's not going to threaten North Korea's security. It's only for enhancing the ability of our pilots, and it also enhance the interoperability between South Korean Air Forces and the US Air Forces. So by taking this message, then North Korea is going to say that they can understand and they can come back to the talks. So they need some like political message that can save their face.
So they're showing that they're against it, but it's not going to derail the reconciliation process between the two Koreas. I guess that's what you're saying.
Yes, I think that this is not serious enough for them to cancel everything. So they need something that they can come back. So I think the South Korean government is going to prepare that kind of message for North Korea to come back to the table.
Okay. So later in the day, there was another development. North Korean state media reported comments by the regime's foreign minister, Kim Kye-kwan, who said that if the US tries to force North Korea into a one-sided or unilateral demands to denuclearize, then the North would have to reconsider the summit talks. Now, after all this progress towards talks, why this sudden change? Is this more just about showing face?
I think, again, this is also for the domestic audiences in North Korea, because we have seen the report that Secretary of the State of the United States, Mike Pompeo, visited very recently in Pyongyang with a lot of working level government officials. That means that there has been some positive progress between the United States and North Korea. But Kim Kye-kwan cited John Bolton and so-called Libyan model. I don't think that kind of model is being discussed between North Korea and the United States. If North Korea feels that they are pushed too hard by the United States, I don't think that Secretary Pompeo would say that the meeting went very well. So I think that since many people in North Korea were excluded from the talks between the United States and North Korea, their information about the progress between the US and DPRK is very limited. So there might be some criticism from within North Korea that North Korea gives it up without getting nothing from the United States, and North Korea is pushed too hard by the United States. So I think the North Korean government has to send a message to its domestic audience that we are not just pushed hard by United States, and the deal that we are going to get is not what US wants, it's what North Korea wants. So I think it's the kind of step that they have to take to make their people to believe that North Korea is continuing in its own way, not by the push by the United States.
I guess that makes sense with this next point I'm going to make, which is that Kim Kye-kwan, the North Korean official, also railed against suggestions by Washington's Secretary of State Mike Pompeo that the US would be willing to facilitate private economic investment into the regime if it denuclearizes. Now, the Vice Minister said that Pyongyang has never had any expectations of such assistance from the US and that it would never make any deal to do so. To me, it seems like the North's pride has been hurt over the suggestions that it needs handouts from the US. It seems like it's trying to send a message to its domestic audience, as you said.
So we have to see what kind of messages has been delivered to the domestic audiences inside North Korea. So like for over last 30 years, North Korean regime has pushed forward having nuclear weapons to go against this like so-called imperialistic United States, and imperialistic United States threatens North Korea's security. So that is why they have to develop nuclear weapons. So for developing nuclear weapons, North Korean people has to endure economic hardship. So actually it justifies North Korea's regime's survival within North Korea. But for denuclearization, they have to turn it over. All the rhetorics that they have told their own people. So to get economic benefits from the United States, so North Korea is going to give up its nuclear weapons. It's very difficult for North Korean regime to sell to its own people. So that is why I think Kim Kye-gwan mentioned this. North Korea is giving up nuclear weapons not for the economic benefits, possible economic benefits from the United States, but North Korea itself is going to decide to do this for the international peace in that kind of rhetoric. So this is the kind of step that North Korea is going to convince its own people domestically. So I think we are going to see this kind of messages in the future as well.
So in your opinion, Dr. Wu, right now, you don't think there's a chance that the North Korea-U.S. summit could be cancelled? For now, anyway, you're thinking?
I think that like today's development does not indicate that North Korea is serious enough to cancel the meetings with the President Trump in June 12th. So we have to see, but I think that at this stage, it's unlikely that North Korea is really going to cancel the meeting between Trump and Kim in June.
Before June, next week, North Korea invited foreign journalists to come witness the dismantling of its nuclear test site. Can we expect this meeting then to be still on, to have the foreign journalists still go to Punggye nuclear test site, do you think?
I think again, my answer is we have to see, because we never know what North Korea is going to do. But I think that the current development between the United States and North Korea, I think that North Korea is in the path of denuclearization. The question is how complete it will be. But it will be better for North Korea's survival and North Korea's economic status to continue have a discussion with the United States. So I think that is why that it is unlikely that North Korea is cancel all the series of meetings. So we don't know yet. We don't know yet about the shutting down the nuclear test site, because it's a unilateral move by Kim Jong-un during the summit with the President Moon Jae-in. So maybe they can cancel the events next week, but they can still show it later if the certain atmosphere has changes in Korean Peninsula. So maybe they want something in exchange for the shutting down of their nuclear facility, and they want to get some more like positive things from the international community.
South Korea has said it will request further information from North Korea over why they cancelled the meeting and other developments that's happened over the last 24 hours. But how does Seoul now have to act on this very delicate time? Where does Seoul go from with North Korea on this?
So probably that North Korea wanted to send a message that it's not done deal yet. So like United States Secretary Pompeo mentioned that we can give some kind of economic benefits to North Korea if North Korea denuclearizes itself. And it sounds like North Korea already agreed to denuclearization, and U.S. is ready to give some economic benefits to the North Korea. So we have to be very careful about sending message to North Korea that we thought it's a done deal. So I think that to continue have and to to get much more positive behavior from North Korea, that we have to approach this issue that it's not done yet. So if North Korea feels that South Korea and the United States think it's done, they are going to maybe sabotage, or they are going to spoil it. So I think like President Moon Jae-in said before, that we have to do like we are walking on the very thin knife.
So a small hiccup for now. We have to wait and see how it progresses, but we're still on the right track, I guess.
I guess we are on the right path.
Thank you. That's all we have time for today. Thank you for coming in today.
Thank you.
That's our show for now, but please do join us again later as we bring you all the latest developments from Korea and around the world. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.